Spain, along with Jerry Garrett. Cheating and dangerous driving at America's two recent road race Grand Prix this week prompted strong action by Formula One race officials. Jerry, you were in Europe this week for the debut of an exciting new racetrack, but the bureaucrats ended up stealing the headlines.
Well, David, big fine and a shocking suspension came down Wednesday in Paris. Formula One officials banned the Tyrrell team from the Grand Prix circuit for the rest of the season. At the Detroit Grand Prix, rookie Martin Brundle finished second, best for a Tyrrell this year. But American officials, perhaps stricter than those in Europe, found the car had illegal weight-saving technology and illegal fuel. For its sins, Tyrrell was hit with the heaviest discipline in recent Formula One history. Now, meanwhile, Nigel Mansell, who drives for Team Lotus, picked up a $6,000 fine. There were two key pieces of evidence against Mansell. This was the most obvious. He tried to split the front row at the start of the Detroit Grand Prix, and chaos resulted. Through good fortune, there were no injuries, just a lot of damage. Dallas, too, saw dangerous, if somewhat heroic, Mansell driving. But pushing cars across the track has caused fatal accidents in the past. Mansell will apparently pay the fine.
Jerry will be back to tell us about Germany's exciting new Nürburgring racetrack. But first, one of the biggest upsets in Top Fuel drag racing history. This is Frank Bradley, and he may be the last of a breed. A Top Fuel match racer, a throwback to the gunfighters of the Old West. He hauls his car all over the country, racing one-on-one for small guarantees at tiny drag strips in out-of-the-way places. It's a hard life, a world away from the High Buck National Hot Rod Association Championship meets, the home of the big stars.
It's getting tougher and tougher because we require so much money to run these things. It costs, it's astronomical. I mean, there's people spending $900,000 a year running the race cars.
Well, Bradley challenged those big teams at last weekend's NHRA Summer Nationals, and he did it match race style. He made just one qualifying run, tacked a 5.5-second beauty on the judges' stand wall, and then stood back and said anybody who thought they could beat him, come on up, one-on-one. Well, Gene Snow was the first to try. Bradley put him on the trailer in the first round. Gary Beck, two-time world champ, met Bradley in the semifinals. He was disqualified for jumping the green light. And so in the finals, it was Bradley up against the biggest Top Fuel gun of all, Joe Amato, Winston World Championship point leader. The well-financed Amato had blown an engine en route to this meeting. Bradley snorted, he's got boxes full of spare engines. And then he calmly shot Amato down in a great race. Frank Bradley, a 15-year veteran from Napa, California, only his second NHRA national win ever. Oh, that's a great moment for the little guy. Frank Bradley makes his living match racing. 10 months a year on the road, then a quick trip home to build a new car. No time for details like that telltale rust we noticed on the frame rails of his winning racer at Englishtown.
Didn't really have time to paint the frame. I mean, it was a quick deal. I went back to the coast. We built this car in about 2 weeks. Took it down to Los Angeles, Stratton painted it, and we had to race that next weekend, so we didn't have time to paint it, and I've been working on other things throughout the winter, so I really didn't have time to paint it this winter.
Well, Bradley's win comes at a difficult time for the Top Fuel division. Fewer and fewer teams can afford the high cost of competition. Funny cars are getting more and more popular. Pessimistic observers say Top Fuel is dying. Frank Bradley begs to differ.
Well, to start with, Top Fuel is not going to end. I mean, it's just not going to happen. The dragster guys, like myself, I mean, I'm more into working on my own race car, and I mean, I like it. And I want the quickest, and I want the fastest race car. If I have to go to a plastic-bodied funny car, I'll quit.
You'll quit drag racing to do what, Frank?
Probably ride my Harley off into the sunset.
That's Frank Bradley. Time will tell whether he's the last American hero or Top Fuel drag racing's next big superstar. Bob Glidden is a pro stock superstar, went after his 40th national victory Sunday. Lately, Lee Shepard consistently beats Glidden. He's won 26 nationals in the last 4 years.
Bob's a real hustler. He works night and day at this, and to do better than him, you just have to do the same thing.
The Summer Nationals final, Shepard in the near lane, Glidden on the far side. Hustle and hard work the keys, along with reflexes and 180-mile-an-hour speed. Bob Glidden wins a stunning 40th career national by a victory margin of 0.06 of a second. And we go now to the funny car final. It's all Texans and Ford Mustangs. Raymond Beadle hasn't won in over a year. Billy Meyer wants the championship point lead. They both come out on top. Beadle gets to the finish line first victory in a year, but Billy Meyer takes over the lead in the World Championship point standings. Now, that's the drag racing story. Jerry, what about this exciting new European racetrack?
Well, Dave, Germany's Nürburgring, one of the most historic circuits, is now one of the most modern. I'll have a report from there when we come back. Adolf Hitler ordered the Nürburgring built below this castle, presumably so he could watch from his balcony as Germany's huge auto union race cars conquered Formula One racing. But the powerful auto unions never got sorted out. And when World War II came along, Hitler was a bit too busy to worry about auto racing. Though a track existed here before Hitler came to power, it was he who pushed the Nürburgring to become the ultimate road racing test. It was a driver's fantasy, 14 miles long, 176 turns, a third of them blind, 1,100 feet in elevation changes. There was nothing like it. But the fabulous old circuit closed last year. It was just too huge to manage. But out of the ashes of the old track, a new Nürburgring has risen. More than a year in construction, the 2.4-mile mini ring, with an incredible price tag of $40 million, boasts miles of concrete grandstands, spacious parking and paddock areas, and a plush complex combining pits, garages, hospitality suites, and official timing and scoring. But what of the circuit itself? Last Sunday, the track was inaugurated with a World Endurance Championship road race. The Führer would have been proud. A German factory car with a German driver won a classic battle. Although the factory Porsche of Derek Bell and Stefan Beloff started on the pole, this was not to be the usual Porsche factory blowout. Porsche customer cars served notice they have caught up with, and in some cases surpassed, the factory. Hans Stuck, a number 9, was the early leader, but the competition was as fierce as it's ever been in this series. Within the first 90 minutes, there had been 8 different leaders. After 2 hours, the skies opened and rained chaos on the track. But one driver was equal to the wet challenge. Belgian Thierry Boutsen, co-driving with David Hobbs in number 33, put nearly a lap on the field. But during a pit stop, a fuel valve fault started, Hobbs got less than a full tank, and the Skoll Porsche had to make another pit stop with just 6 laps left. Beloff in number 2, coming back from an earlier spin, caught Hobbs just 2 laps from the end. Beloff then went ahead and held on for a 4-second margin at the checkered flag. The third-place Lancia was the only non-Porsche in the top 10. Bell and Beloff, meanwhile, moved into the Endurance Series points lead. Derek Bell is also within striking distance of the points lead in America's rival Camel GT road racing series, but he'll have a problem running for both series titles. The two series have several date conflicts.
Jerry, wasn't this supposed to be the week that World Endurance and Camel GT officials announced some great meeting of the minds?
Well, it didn't happen, Dave. European rules are still going to be based on fuel economy, American rules on power and speed, and we'll explore what that means next week.
Finally, the Monaco Grand Prix controversy, I understand, has been settled.
Well, I talked to famous racer Jackie Ickx at Nürburgring about his part in the controversy. Ickx, as you remember, served as clerk of the course. A rainstorm swept that famous race, causing several bad crashes. Ickx threw the red flag just as Ayrton Senna prepared to pass Alain Prost's Porsche-powered McLaren for the lead. Ickx, who drives a factory Porsche in endurance road racing, was accused of favoritism towards Prost, but he took that criticism in stride.
Certain decisions are going to be appreciated by some people and disappreciated or unaccepted by other people. But if I have to do it again, I'll do it again, exactly the same way.
Well, Wednesday, Ickx was fined $6,000 for not consulting with proper race officials before he threw that red flag. The race results, however, are certified as official.
Now let's talk more about Formula One's season-long suspension of the Tyrrell team. That's a rags to riches to rags story. Ken Tyrrell, a British lumberjack, bought a Formula One car, hired an upcoming driver named Jackie Stewart, and they won 3 world championships. Since then, not much luck. This bizarre 6-wheeled car didn't win many races, nor have its successors. Hot young rookie Martin Brundle earned the team a second-place finish in the Detroit Grand Prix, but the use of illegal ballast and fuel led to the team's banishment from the circuit. Ken Tyrrell has not taken this lying down. He sought and obtained a court injunction forcing officials to let him run at this weekend's British Grand Prix, and Jerry is going to have the qualifying results from Great Britain a little later today.
Well, a fine and a suspension have made motorcycle racing news this week. We'll have all the two-wheel news when we come back.
Motorcycle officials have fined Bubba Schobert $1,000 and suspended him for 45 days for punching fellow racer Terry Poovey. Schobert paid the fine, apologized to Poovey, then appealed the suspension. Schobert races for Team Honda, and because of that, the American Motorcyclist Association is having a problem assembling a panel to hear the appeal. Seems all the candidates have some tie with Honda that might prejudice them. Until that problem is resolved, Schobert continues to race. In fact, he won last Saturday night at Hagerstown, Maryland. Randy Goss, who rides for the rival Harley-Davidson factory, took over the series point lead with a second-place finish there.
Well, Team Honda's Johnny O'Mara is running away, literally, with the Wrangler Supercross Championship. Distance running is the key to O'Mara's training for this strenuous sport. He did 56 miles preparing for last week's race, and his championship hopes are high.
I think I'm the guy to beat, and I'm just going out to prove that to everybody and just to myself that I can do it.
Well, the suburbs of Buffalo, New York hosted the Stadium Supercross last weekend. 20,000 fans on hand. Larry Myers calls the action.
When the gate dropped, it was series points leader Johnny O'Mara out in front. Close behind was the 1983 champion and teammate of O'Mara, David Bailey. Billy Lyles was running third. The one rider close to O'Mara in the point standings, Team Kawasaki's Jeff Ward, was mired behind teammate Lyles. It was expected that Lyles would move over and let Ward by to pursue O'Mara and the championship. But Billy Lyles had other ideas. For several laps, he diced with Ward, keeping the series contender behind him. When Ward finally broke free, the fleeing O'Mara was well out in front. Ward had virtually no chance to catch him, despite turning the fastest laps of the night. His charge was finished at the end of the long starting straightaway as Ward lost control and went down. At the checkered flag, it was Johnny O'Mara with a win. David Bailey finished second, and Ron Lachine, completing a Honda sweep, finished third. For O'Mara, it was smiles, thumbs up, and win number 5 of the series. From Rich Stadium in Buffalo, New York, I'm Larry Myers for MotorWeek Illustrated.
Off-road buggies and trucks are also invading stadiums. In its pure form, off-roading is no spectator sport. Few folks trek to the desert of Baja California just to get an occasional glimpse of a passing dune buggy. So off-road star Mickey Thompson is bringing a modified version of his sport right to the spectators in far-from-the-desert places like Indianapolis. 20,000 showed up for this spectacle, too. On the floor of the new Hoosier Dome, adjustable steel ramps and barricades simulated Baja boulders and California cactus. The race cars slithered and slid on cement instead of sand, and sometimes they used each other for traction. Ivan Stewart, the king of off-road truck racing, had a little local competition. Tom Sneva's a past Indy 500 winner. They were both in factory Toyota pickups, but their team didn't fare too well. In fact, many of off-roading's big stars fell victim to the tight, twisting course. Watch Walker Evans get sideways, then get T-boned. This action may not look very off-road-like, but the fans could have cared less. They cheered wildly as the factory truck teams dueled. The Ford fans were ecstatic when Jeff Huber of Apple Valley, California, began to build a lead. The Toyota camp moaned when their men struggled and fell back. Huber was all alone on the final lap as he launched his truck through the artificial whoop-de-doos and streaked to victory.
Well, stock car racing's Young Lions had a good night last Saturday at the home of one of the sport's established stars. Take a look at that story when Motor Week continues.
More Grand National stock car races in the past 10 years than any other driver. Nowhere is Waltrip more dominant than on his home short track in Nashville, Tennessee. But in Music City last Saturday night, Waltrip was upstaged by a couple of stock car racing's upcoming stars. Ricky Rudd broke out of a mid-season slump to win the pole. Jeff Bodine outdueled you-know-who to the checkered flag. Ned Jarrett has both their stories.
In the early part of the season, Ricky Rudd won 3 poles. It looked like he might run away with the $25,000 that Busch paid for the most poles during the season, but he hasn't won one since May at Dover, Delaware, until here at Nashville, and we asked him why.
Well, Ned, I don't know. It seemed like at the beginning of the year we really couldn't do anything wrong. The car ran exceptionally well everywhere we went. We were able to win 3 poles real early, but it seemed like all of a sudden we've kind of been in a little bit of a slump. We haven't won any poles. We haven't been as competitive as we'd like to have been in the races. And now it seems like things have turned around a little bit. We've come to Nashville. We've won the pole. The car is running good enough in the race that if we hit the right combination on the tires and the pit stops during the night, we possibly could win this race.
He was able to lead early and battled with fellow Ford driver Bill Elliott, but he faded back. His hopes for a good finish went out the window with a long pit stop when a wheel stud stripped during a tire change. Jeff Bodine in car number 5 and Darrell Waltrip in car number 11 let the field know early they were the men to beat. Winston Cup point leader Dale Earnhardt led for a while, but when the chips were down, he was no match for the smooth handling cars of Bodine and Waltrip. Bobby Allison ran strong in his car number 22, but a cut tire late in the race cost him any chances of running for the win. Bodine dominated the race by leading the most laps. Everyone was wondering, was Waltrip holding back to the end? But he tried desperately to move around, but Bodine was not to be intimidated by the man who has owned this track. He held on to win his second career NASCAR Winston Cup race. For MotorWeek Illustrated, this is Ned Jarrett at the Nashville International Raceway.
In his third Winston Cup season, Bodine is making the most of a new team. He and crew chief Harry Hyde went straight into the Lion's Den Saturday night. Waltrip had won 5 of the last 7 races on his home track. But as Jeff told our Ned Jarrett, he and Harry went in there knowing what they were looking for.
I don't know what to say. Everything went just right for us tonight. We felt like the last race here at Nashville, we should have won. We could have won it. And we came here, Harry and I thought we could get a pole here. We qualified well the first time, but we missed that. So we said, well, the heck with that. Let's go for the win.
You didn't seem intimidated by Darrell Waltrip, who's won so many on this racetrack.
Well, Harry was talking me around those last few laps. He just kept telling me to stay low. And Darrell would try it high, and I'd see that he could lose. So that's all I did was stay low. And I've had a lot of races like that, Ned, throughout my career. None with Darrell Waltrip chasing me here at Nashville, but a lot of races where people were chasing me, and one mistake would cost me the race. So I like the pressure. I'm used to it, and I really like it, enjoy it. I think I do better under those conditions, and tonight was one of them.
Jeff Bodine's a winner, thanks to good advice from Harry Hyde, one of racing's legendary crew chiefs. If Jeff keeps listening to Harry, he'll win a lot more. Harry Hyde gets our U.S. Air Force Reserve Wrangler Behind the Scenes Award and a shot at the Honda Ascot motorcycle that goes to our year-end Behind the Scenes Award winner.
The Winston Cup stars are in Pocono, Pennsylvania this weekend for the Like Cola 500. Bill Elliott has the pole position for that event. Bobby Allison, who has won 4 of the last 5 events at Pocono, qualified 10th. Allison has been splitting his time between qualifying for the Pocono event and running a pickup truck race last night in South Carolina. After 20 years of racing, Bobby still can't say no to local racing promoters.
I really enjoy it. You know, just like tonight, there's so many fans that I haven't seen in a long time, and so many friends, the competitors in the pits and everything, and I just really have a genuine enjoyment for it, and I can't say no. When there's a race, that's where I want to be.
Well, Bobby in the familiar white number 22 fared well against the pickup regulars. He finished second to All-Pro Stock Car champ Freddie Fryer. Mario Andretti has taken the pole position for tomorrow's Michigan 500 IndyCar race. Andretti, who is looking for his 3rd win of the year, broke the track record with a scorching speed over 211 miles an hour. Kevin Cogan had one of his best qualifying performances and will start from the middle of row 2. Cogan is now driving for the Forsyth team in the familiar number 33 Skoal Bandit. Teo Fabi, Forsyth's regular driver, has abandoned IndyCar racing for his primary interest, Formula One Grand Prix racing. Fabi was released from his IndyCar contract by car owner Jerry Forsyth. Meanwhile, Fabi's teammate on the Brabham Formula One team, Nelson Piquet, has won the pole position for tomorrow's British Grand Prix. Alain Prost, who leads the Formula One standings, qualified 2nd. Prost's McLaren teammate Niki Lauda will start from 3rd spot on the grid.
Now let's quickly check our Mr. Gasket weekend racing calendar. Some interesting stories here. That Pocono stock car race is a potential turning point in Bobby Allison's generally lackluster season. Bobby has the best Pocono record of any driver in the field. Road racers have held the IndyCar spotlight for a month, but it's back to 200-mile-per-hour roundy-round racing on the oval at Michigan International Speedway tomorrow. And in California, Laguna Seca Raceway hosts the 2 greatest motorcycle road racers in American history. Kenny Roberts versus Freddie Spencer in the Champions Spark Plug Challenge. Now a footnote to the story of Top Fuel drag racer Frank Bradley's big upset at the Summer Nationals. As a touring match racer, Frank is a frequent rival of Top Fuel legend Don Garlits. Here they are at a meet in Ohio last year. 2 weeks ago, Bradley raced Garlits at a little country strip in Iowa, and he ran off the end of the track at 250 miles an hour.
And it just went off in the cornfield. I mean, it was a short racetrack, and I'd been down there inspecting the racetrack earlier, knew about where to go off. If it did go off, I always go down and look at the end of the racetracks. That all we did to it is fill up full of dirt, broke the gas tank, and I have a welder in my trailer, and I just heli-arced it all back together, and off we went.
Off he went to Englishtown, New Jersey to claim the biggest win of his career at the NHRA Summer Nationals. And for that, Frank Bradley is our champion spark plug racer of the week. With that, we have to say goodbye.
I'm Jerry Garrett. We'll be back next Saturday at the same time.
And I'm Dave Despain. We're going to leave you today with one last tour of the historic old Nürburgring racecourse.
Promotional assistance and a promotion fee paid by Dodge Trucks, the official vehicles of MotorWeek Illustrated. On the road, off the road, for competition or pleasure, on any job you give them, Dodge Trucks are Ram tough.
The Air Force Reserve. Be one of a kind in today's Air Force Reserve. Now, more than ever, a great way to serve. Call toll-free 800-257-1212.
And by Honda, world leader in motorcycle competition. Follow the leader. He's on a Honda. And by the Mr. Gasket Companies, including Kragar, for 20 years, manufacturers of the world's finest custom wheels and louvers. Kragar, from the performance people.
MotorWeek Illustrated was brought to you by Dodge, makers of Ram Tough Dodge trucks, and by Dodge cars that will revolutionize your perspective of the road. We are Dodge, an American revolution. And by Firestone Tires, where we're building radial tires street legal, competition tough, and proving it every week in the nation's toughest motorsports action. Firestone, the word's getting around.